If you get stuff through the door from the yes or the no side, from the People's Movement, from PANA, from whatever, you know, People Before Profit, or you get it from Labour, Fine Gael, or whatever, you know that they have a specific, you know, they have a particular position on it. So you know that, well, the way they're presenting the arguments is going to be slanted. We all do it, right? But in relation to the Referendum Commission, everyone thinks this is going to be a balanced, impartial piece of information that you can actually look at. But if you go to it, first of all, it's inaccurate, because it mentions here, just even on, it's on page 2, about the European Commission. It says that, and that's off Gaelic, which I think is not really what I want. It says that Ireland will continue to nominate a commissioner. In the current text of the EU treaties, member states propose their commissioner, right? Like we proposed Charlie McCreevy or whatever the last time. This time, member states, after the head of the European Commission is elected, member states make suggestions. That's what's in the new text. It says make suggestions. It doesn't say nominate. It says make suggestions. So that's a fundamental flaw in this, because the Referendum Commission, which is supposed to be balanced, impartial, and is supposed to be accurate in what it puts out, is already on page 2 of the document misleading and misinforming the public in saying that we will continue to nominate a commissioner, when in actual fact the new situation will be the member states will make suggestions. And why am I saying that's important? Well, to just change the word from proposing to making suggestions means there is a reason behind that, there's a purpose behind every single change that the Lisbon Treaty proposes. For example, say in the next European Commission, the Irish government propose somebody like Charlie McCreevy, or make a suggestion, I should say, of somebody like Charlie McCreevy. The suggestion does not have to be accepted. The new president of the European Commission can say, interesting suggestion, but I'm afraid it just isn't what we want. That in itself is a major distortion by the Referendum Commission. They also then go on to talk about the Council of Ministers, and this, I think, is fundamental. One of the biggest changes in the Lisbon Treaty is how decision making will be carried out from the day the Lisbon Treaty comes into force. And one of the biggest problems for small countries is that the new system within the Council of Ministers, and it is a new system, even though the Referendum Commission brushes over this fact, the new system will be based on population. It will be population criteria that will be used. We're told at the moment, but there's a double majority system coming in, a new system. A double majority system already exists within the European Union, and you're being totally misled by the yes side when they say this is going to be a new system where population and member states, that will be at 2 majorities. That already exists. At the moment we have a majority of member states and a weighted vote within the Council. And both of those have to apply under the current system. What is fundamentally different with the new system proposed by Lisbon is that Ireland, for example, its voting strength will be reduced by well over 50%. We go down to less than 1 percentage point. Germany's voting strength will increase by over 100%. So, you know, when you think of it like that the big countries, the voting system within the Council is geared towards the interests of the big countries at the expense of the small countries. And that is one of the most fundamental changes in the Lisbon Treaty. And this Referendum Commission does not even highlight that fact. They do not want to address the fact, because it's very difficult for them when they talk about, we have to vote for Lisbon because we have to be at the heart of Europe. How the heck are we being at the heart of Europe by reducing our voting strength within the Council of Ministers to less than 1 percentage point? 0.8 of a percentage point is what we'll have. How does that put us at the heart of Europe? At the moment we have a 2% voting weight, which of course for our size is I suppose for some people would consider it's not that great, but it is actually, when you take all the other small countries, it's relevant, and there's a reason for reducing our strength in this way. The other thing that there is no mention of whatsoever in this booklet is that the veto, that is the system whereby a unanimous agreement has to be required for something to go forward, that is removed in a huge range of new areas. And if you consider that the voting strength of Ireland was reduced in the Council of Ministers and a majority voting system based on population is brought in, and we lose the power to block something, it's of fundamental importance that this is highlighted by the Referendum Commission, but it's not even mentioned. The other thing in relation to how it deals with, and I think this is quite interesting, this book is geared towards a yes outcome. It talks about, in some of the issues, it talks about that a number of specific issues which were clearly important to some voters arose in the course of the last campaign. Some of these issues would not be affected by the Lisbon Treaty, but are nevertheless of concern to some voters. Some of these have since been the subject of assurances from the European Council. This somehow gives the impression that these assurances have solved the problem, when in actual fact they haven't. So what this booklet is a mouthpiece for the government and the yes side. It's giving the impression that somehow these assurances actually mean something, when in fact they don't. But I also think what's interesting is that all the focus is on why people voted no last time, including the referendum commission. A huge amount of public money was spent after the last vote on Lisbon, when we voted no, to try and get behind the minds of people to find out exactly why we voted no. The biggest, most extensive research campaign ever carried out in this country to find out why people voted in a particular way was carried out after the Lisbon Treaty, at your, mine and every taxpayer in this country's expense. They used our money to try and get into our minds, behind our heads, and try and find out exactly why we voted no. And then they said, right, they voted no for this reason, this reason, this reason, and this reason. And then in front of all those reasons, they thought, don't worry, assurances, assurances, assurances. It means nothing. And the Referendum Commission are playing this game as well. But what's interesting, no one has asked, well, why did some people vote yes? There were many people out there who voted yes because they didn't want to be out of Europe. They wanted to be in Europe. They thought that somehow this was about membership of the European Union. And you still hear it to this day, you know, well, I'm going to vote yes because I'm in favour of Europe. Or, you know, where would we be without Europe? And that's what the yes side keeps saying all the time. We have to vote, and they said it last time, we have to vote for the Lisbon Treaty because where would we be without Europe? We have to vote for the Lisbon Treaty because we don't want to be isolated. It's got nothing to do with the Lisbon Treaty, but that's why the yes people voted yes last time, many of them. And the Referendum Commission isn't pointing out that they were mistaken in relation to that, because whether they voted yes or no, they were still going to be members of the European Union. So the hypocrisy and the one-sided approach to this campaign, I think, really is quite, it's quite despicable. The other thing, and that's why I'm saying I'd advise people, and I'll give you back your leaflet in a few minutes, I'd advise people to actually get onto the Referendum Commission. It's an absolute disgrace. The Referendum Commission, since it's not able to give out the pros and cons of the Lisbon Treaty anymore, should only be dealing with the text of the constitutional amendment, and that makes it quite clear that the Lisbon Treaty sets up a new European Union. It says that the state will ratify the union established in Lisbon, blah blah blah, on whatever date, and be a member of the union established by virtue of that treaty. It says, and be a member of the union established by virtue of that treaty means that a new European Union is being created by virtue of the Lisbon Treaty. They should be explaining exactly what that means, but they're not. Nor are they explaining how Ireland loses a huge amount of power and influence in relation to the Lisbon Treaty. Nor are they explaining that in the Constitution Amendment it says that nothing in our Constitution shall override our obligations under the Lisbon Treaty. It makes it quite clear that our Constitution will be subservient to the requirements and the obligations enshrined in the Lisbon Treaty. That's what the Referendum Commission should be explaining, but they're not doing it. They actually have become a tool for the yes side, and we have called on them today actually to withdraw this booklet because we think it's in breach of the current legislation where taxpayers' money should not be used to promote a particular outcome. Now, while the booklet itself doesn't say yes, I think anyone taking a look at it, or any kind of objective person, would have to admit that the book is slanted in relation to the yes side.